Hmm. You know, there's a question older than fire, older than the wheel. A question whispered round campfires, painted on cave walls, and still murmured in quiet prayers beneath neon skies. It's the same question that refuses to die, the same one that hides between hope and fear. Is there someone watching us? Billions of people wake each morning, press their palms together, close their eyes, and speak into the silence. They don't know who's listening, but they believe someone is. Oh, my friend, what a beautiful idea. That the universe isn't cold or empty, that someone, somewhere, knows our pain, hears our thoughts, loves us without reason. We've built entire civilizations on that idea. Temples, hymns, commandments, wars, all because we couldn't stand the thought that maybe, just maybe, we're alone in the dark. But here's what fascinates me. Every god, every holy name, every ancient whisper of faith has always come from one source: the human mind. It's strange, isn't it? We created gods to explain thunder, to make sense of death, to comfort the child in the storm. And then, over time, the creation began to rule the creator. Faith became not just belief, but law. Not just story, but truth. And then, thousands of years later, one quiet scientist walked into the middle of that storm and asked a question so simple, it sounded dangerous. What if it's all a story? That man was Richard Dawkins, and his book, The God Delusion, wasn't written to mock faith, but to understand it, to trace the roots of belief not to heaven, but to evolution. He dared to ask, what if belief in gods wasn't divine at all, but biological, a side effect of survival, a byproduct of a brain wired to find patterns, faces, and meaning, even when there's none? So maybe that's why a rustling in the dark feels like a spirit watching us, why lightning feels like anger and wind feels like whisper, because our ancestors who imagined danger lived, and those who didn't. So maybe faith was our first firewall, a way to make chaos feel safer. It's poetic, really. The same imagination that painted gods in the sky also painted equations, rockets, and dreams. Faith and science, they're not enemies. They're siblings born from the same need to understand the unknown. Oh, my friend, isn't that beautiful? That curiosity and belief are just two languages trying to say the same thing. Why are we here? But Dawkins didn't stop at wonder. He wanted to know why this idea, this God story, still holds such power. Why, even in a world of satellites and science, billions still look up and see purpose, not probability. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the truth, my friend, is that faith was never just about gods. It was about comfort. It was about control. It was about connection. Faith filled the space between what we know and what we fear. And when knowledge expanded, faith adapted. It always does. Oh, but don't mistake this story for arrogance. The God Delusion isn't a hymn of certainty. It's a challenge to it. A call to ask why we believe, not just what we believe. To stand before the vast, indifferent universe and find beauty, even without a caretaker watching over us. Because maybe the universe doesn't need to love us to be worth loving. You know, sometimes I think of it like this. For centuries, we spoke to the heavens. Now, for the first time, the heavens answer back, not in voices, but in data, in light, in atoms, in code. And yet somehow, we still feel that ache, that quiet, ancient longing to belong to something more. Maybe that's the real delusion. Not that gods exist, but that without them, we are nothing. Oh, my friend, what if it's the opposite? What if realizing we are alone isn't a curse, but a beginning? So tonight, we're not here to destroy belief. We're here to trace it, to see how imagination became religion, how comfort became control, and how wonder became truth. And maybe by the end, we'll discover that meaning doesn't vanish without gods. It multiplies. Because if there's no divine author, then every breath, every choice, every kindness is a miracle we wrote ourselves. So, sit back, my friend. Let your thoughts wander, because we're about to journey from the firelight of faith to the cold beauty of reason, and maybe somewhere in between, find the truth about us. Welcome to the God Delusion. Before temples, before scriptures, before the word God ever existed, there was a human sitting under a tree, watching lightning split the sky in half. The wind howled, the earth shook, and somewhere in that storm, something inside him whispered, "Someone did this." That was the moment belief was born, not from knowledge, but from fear and wonder and the ache to explain the unexplainable. You see, long before philosophy or science, we humans were already making connections, finding meaning where there was only noise. A rustle in the grass meant a predator. A shadow meant danger. A flicker of firelight on the cave wall looked like a face. Our ancestors didn't have data, but they had imagination. And imagination, my friend, was our first survival tool. It made us cautious, it made us curious, and it made us storytellers. Oh, my friend, imagine that world. A time before explanations, before certainty, where every sound in the night was a message, and every storm was a mood of the sky. The universe wasn't empty then. It was alive, filled with spirits, gods, and whispers. And for early humans, those beliefs weren't superstition. They were safety. Because to think there was a will behind chaos made chaos feel less random. It gave them comfort, and more importantly, control. This is what Dawkins calls our pattern-seeking mind. The brain evolved not to find truth, but to find cause, because those who saw intention, even when it wasn't there, were more likely to survive. Think about it. If you hear a rustle in the grass and assume it's just the wind, you might get eaten. But if you assume it's a lion and you're wrong, you just wasted a few seconds running. Nature doesn't reward truth, my friend. It rewards survival. And so our minds became addicted to agency, the idea that everything happens for a reason. The rain falls because someone willed it. The sun rises because someone pulls it. A child gets sick because someone is angry. We invented stories faster than we invented tools, and slowly those stories became systems. Imagine the first tribe huddled around fire. The storm outside rages, and an elder begins to speak of spirits who guard the hunt and gods who punish greed. And the children listen, wide-eyed. They feel safer, and in their safety, they believe. That's how belief spread, not through evidence, but through emotion. It was never about truth. It was about comfort. And that's the genius of our species. We didn't just adapt to nature. We adapted to our own imagination. We made up invisible forces, then lived as if they were real, and in doing so, we made them real enough. That's the strange power of belief. It doesn't need proof to shape reality. All it needs is followers. And once a story is shared by enough minds, it becomes civilization. That's where gods began to take form, not in heaven, but in the human need for order. Because if the world is ruled by invisible laws, then it makes sense to follow visible ones. If lightning is divine anger, then maybe behaving well prevents storms. Morality was born from meteorology. That's how the first gods kept peace, not with fire, but with fear. Dawkins calls this our misfiring of our survival instincts. The same brain that helped us escape predators also made us invent them. And even now, we still see agency where there's only accident. We say, everything happens for a reason. God must have a plan. Oh, it was meant to be. But what if, my friend, it wasn't? What if randomness itself is the most honest God of all? But here's the beautiful paradox. Our need for meaning, even when it's false, gave birth to everything true about us. Art, music, myth, morality. All the golden threads of our species came from this one flaw, our refusal to accept emptiness. The gods may not have created us, but our belief in them made us creators. And that, perhaps, is the most divine act of all. So maybe it doesn't matter whether the first believer was right or wrong. What matters is that belief gave us the courage to imagine, to stand before the storm, and instead of hiding, to tell a story. That story still lives in us, in every hope, every prayer, every whispered word that reaches into the unknown. We still talk to the dark, and maybe that's okay, because sometimes, even if no one's listening, the act of speaking reminds us that we're alive. But belief didn't stay innocent forever. What began as stories around fire became rules, temples, kingdoms, and control. And that's where our next chapter begins. The moment God stopped being ideas and started becoming institutions. Every story of belief begins with the same three words: in the beginning. But this chapter isn't about beginnings. It's about questions. About the moment when humanity, after thousands of years of worship, finally whispered the most dangerous word of all: why? For centuries, gods explained everything we didn't understand. Lightning, plagues, earthquakes, all acts of divine will. And it worked. Until we started noticing patterns. The farmer saw that rain came not from prayer, but from clouds. The sailor saw that stars moved with rhythm, not whim. And slowly, oh so slowly, the unknown began to shrink. And with it, the gods. That's what Dawkins calls the God hypothesis, the idea that the existence of God isn't outside science, but inside it, that the claim God exists isn't a matter of faith alone, but a question that can be tested. That's a bold thought, to bring God down from heaven and place him under the microscope, not to mock, but to measure. Science, after all, isn't arrogance, it's humility. It's saying, I don't know, yet. It's replacing conviction with curiosity. Faith says, I already have the answer. Science whispers, let's find out. And that whisper was the birth of a revolution. You see, for the first time in history, the divine lost its monopoly on mystery. The stars, once thought to be the eyes of gods, turned out to be suns, each with their own worlds. Lightning, once seen as heavenly anger, became electricity. Disease, once called punishment, became biology. And every time a mystery was solved, God took one step back into the shadows. Dawkins isn't saying God doesn't exist. He's saying, if he does, we should be able to tell. Oh, my friend, think about that. Every religion makes claims about the world, not metaphors, but facts. That prayers heal the sick, that creation happened in a week, that souls weigh something. And if those claims touch the physical world, then they are no longer immune to evidence. They must stand in the light. But here's where it gets tricky. Because faith, by design, resists that light. It thrives in mystery. It calls doubt a sin, and curiosity temptation. That's what Dawkins calls the immunity of faith, a belief system that builds a shield against all evidence. When good things happen, it's proof of God. When bad things happen, well, he moves in mysterious ways. In that logic, my friend, no experiment can ever fail. But science lives on failure. Every mistake is progress. Every question, a map. Every I don't know, a door waiting to be opened. That's why Dawkins calls science the poetry of reality. Because it's not just equations and data. It's wonder that doesn't need worship. Imagine loving the universe, not because you think it loves you back, but simply because it exists. That's awe without authority. That's reverence without religion. And yet Dawkins knew this was dangerous territory, because when you challenge gods, you challenge power. When you question heaven, you question those who claim to speak for it. That's why for every Galileo who looked through a telescope, there was an inquisition waiting with fire. And yet, human curiosity refused to die. Maybe that's the divine spark after all. Not faith, but the refusal to stop asking. Think about it. We're a species that questions its own creator, even if that creator is imaginary. That's both rebellion and reverence woven into the same heartbeat. Because whether or not God exists, the search for him taught us how to search for truth. And maybe that's the point. Dawkins says that if God truly made us, He gave us the tools to outgrow Him. He gave us reason, evidence, and doubt, the holy trinity of science. And maybe, my friend, the first sin wasn't disobedience. Maybe it was curiosity. And maybe that's what saved us. So, here we are, in a universe vast beyond measure, filled not with commandments, but with questions. And maybe that's what makes it sacred, not the answers we worship, but the courage to keep searching. My friend, look around you. A flower blooming, a bird's wing slicing through air, the spiral of a seashell, the pulse of your own heart. Everything seems so precise, so delicate, so impossibly perfect. It feels designed, doesn't it? That's the oldest illusion in the world. For centuries, people have looked at nature and seen the fingerprints of a creator. How could something so intricate, so harmonious, so alive be born from chaos? That's what the philosopher William Paley asked in 1802, in what became known as the watchmaker argument. He said, if you found a watch lying in the sand, you'd never assume it built itself. A watch means a watchmaker. Design means a designer. It made perfect sense for its time, because back then, we didn't know about evolution. We didn't know that order could rise from randomness, that beauty could emerge from blind simplicity. Then came Darwin, and with him, a revelation so deep it changed how we saw ourselves forever. Darwin didn't kill God. He simply showed we didn't need him to explain life. He showed that nature could build itself, slowly, blindly, magnificently, through a process as cruel as it is creative. Natural selection. Oh, my friend, imagine a universe where every creature is an experiment, and survival is the only judge. No plan, no purpose, just iteration. Failure upon failure until something works. And yet, out of that endless chaos came wings, eyes, songs, and the mind that now questions it all. That's the paradox of evolution, a blind process that gave birth to sight, a mindless mechanism that created minds capable of wonder. Dawkins called it the blind watchmaker, because nature doesn't plan, it tinkers. Each tiny genetic change, a roll of the dice, each survivor a story that continues. And after billions of years, here we are, thinking, creating, believing, doubting, all because our ancestors' mutations just happened to survive the storm. It's funny, my friend. We once thought we were made from dust. Turns out, we were made from persistence. But the illusion of design is powerful. Even today, when we see symmetry, order, purpose, our brain whispers, someone made this. It's instinct. It's comfort. It's a leftover echo from when our ancestors saw gods and thunder. Imagine looking at a snowflake, 6 perfect points of frozen geometry, each one unique, each one precise. It feels like art, but no artist made it. It's just physics, temperature, and time. Nature doesn't need intention to make beauty. It just needs Patience. Lots of patience. Um, Dawkins says evolution is like a sculptor with infinite time, chipping away at randomness, one failure at a time, until only what works remains. No plan, no blueprint, just survival. Writing poetry in DNA. And yet that poetry gives rise to purpose. We find love, morality, art in a world that never promised them. Isn't that even more miraculous, my friend, to find meaning in a universe that doesn't owe us any? When people say evolution can't explain the complexity of life, they misunderstand the masterpiece. Evolution doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to work long enough for something perfect to appear by accident. Think of it like this: a sculptor who doesn't know what he's carving, but every chip, every cut brings something beautiful into shape. That's life, a cosmic accident that learned to love its own existence. Dawkins calls this the magic of reality, because once you understand how blind processes make beauty, you stop needing miracles and start seeing everything as one. The veins in a leaf, the flight of a hawk, the code inside your cells. It's all connected, not by design, but by evolution's endless patience. And maybe that's sacred enough. So maybe we were wrong all along. Maybe the watch never had a maker. Maybe the watch built itself, one gear at a time, one life at a time, one mistake at a time. And maybe that's what makes it perfect. Not divine precision, but human appreciation. Because the universe doesn't care about beauty, but we do. And that, my friend, is what gives it meaning. When you understand this, you realize that evolution doesn't destroy wonder, it deepens it. It shows us that from chaos comes creation, from randomness, rhythm, from nothing, everything. So maybe there is a kind of God in that, not one that listens, but one that is. The God of pattern, the God of persistence, the God of possibility. And yet, even knowing this, we still crave more. Not just how life works, but why. That's the next question Dawkins asks. If evolution explains creation, why do we still need belief? Because maybe, my friend, faith isn't about explanation. It's about comfort. And that's where our next story begins. My friend, have you ever wondered why we believe? Not what we believe, but why we need to. Because if you look deep enough, faith isn't built on logic. It's built on longing. The human brain didn't evolve to find truth. It evolved to find comfort, to ease the ache of not knowing. Faith is the lullaby we sing to our fears. Think about it. We are the only species that knows it will die, the only creature cursed or blessed with the knowledge of its own ending. And when you know that, when you stare at the edge of existence, something inside you needs a story to soften the fall. So we invented one, or many. Heaven, reincarnation, eternity, they all whisper the same promise. This isn't the end. Dawkins says religion is a byproduct, a side effect of brains built to obey, to trust, to find purpose where there is none. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because a child who listens to their parent's voice is more likely to survive. So evolution made us believers before it made us thinkers. We were born to believe before we were born to question. That's why children accept every story you tell them, From Santa Claus to angels, their world is soft, infinite, magical. Faith feels like breathing. And even when we grow up, part of that child remains, the part that still wants to be watched over. Maybe that's why every god we've ever made looks a little like a parent. The psychology of faith is simple. It replaces fear with familiarity. When thunder frightens us, we name it Zeus. When death confuses us, we call it heaven. When we suffer, we tell ourselves someone has a plan. Faith turns chaos into conversation. It gives voice to silence, meaning to pain, and purpose to the unbearable. Oh, my friend, Dawkins doesn't hate faith. He understands it. He knows it's woven into our biology, a necessary illusion. Because sometimes reality is too heavy without a story to carry it. That's why you see even the most rational people whisper, "Please," when life collapses, or look upward when they are alone. Faith is not stupidity. It's empathy turned inward, the brain comforting itself. But Dawkins warns us there's danger in that comfort, because the same mechanism that creates warmth can also create walls. When belief gives us belonging, it also gives us division. The line between we and they, between saved and lost. And that's how kindness becomes control. History is full of faith's fingerprints, both the gentle and the cruel. Faith built cathedrals that touched the sky and burned heretics beneath them. It fed the hungry and silenced the thinkers. It comforted the dying and justified the killing. The same story that heals the heart can also harden it. That's the paradox of belief. The thing that unites us is the same thing that divides us. But still, we cling to it. Because even when faith hurts, the idea of losing it hurts more. Imagine living without purpose, without afterlife, without anyone watching. That emptiness terrifies us, so we fill it with hope, even if that hope is made of smoke. Dawkins calls this a misfiring of the brain's social instinct. The same empathy that makes us love each other makes us imagine being loved by something unseen. Faith feels real because the emotions that create it are real. When you pray, your brain releases the same chemicals as when you're comforted. Your body relaxes, your fear quiets, your pain softens. That's biology, but it feels like grace. So maybe the question isn't, why do we believe? Maybe it's, why do we stop believing? Because faith doesn't fade through reason alone. It fades when we feel safe enough to let it go. And maybe that's the real evolution, not from ape to man, but from fear to freedom. Dawkins says atheism isn't the absence of faith, it's faith transformed. It's the courage to say, I don't know, and still be okay. That's the hardest kind of belief, the one without guarantees, the one that finds meaning not above us, but within us. Faith is a story we tell ourselves to survive uncertainty, and sometimes that story saves us. But Dawkins asks, what if we learn to live without the story? What if instead of praying for meaning, we made it? What if the real miracle isn't divine protection, but human resilience? Because maybe the goal isn't to destroy faith, it's to understand it, to hold it gently, see where it comes from,
and decide which parts we want to keep. Because not all delusions are harmful. Some keep us alive long enough to discover truth. In the next chapter, we'll see what happens when we separate faith from morality. When we ask, do we need God to be good? Or have we been good all along?
For centuries, we were told one thing: without God, there is no good. That morality is a gift handed down from the heavens, engraved in stone, guarded by fear, and rewarded with eternity. But Dawkins asks a quiet question: what if morality didn't descend from the clouds, but grew from the ground? Imagine it. A world before scripture, before temples, before commandments carved into tablets. And yet, even then, mothers loved their children, friends shared food, strangers helped the wounded. They didn't need heaven's permission. They simply cared. Empathy came before religion. Kindness came before commandments. Goodness came before gods. It's strange, isn't it, that people who never heard of a single holy book still know right from wrong. You don't need faith to feel pain, and you don't need faith to understand what it means to cause it. That's not divine instruction. That's human intuition. Dawkins says morality is written in our biology, not as rules, but as instincts, a long, ancient code of compassion that evolution itself selected. Because, my friend, survival isn't just about strength, it's about cooperation. A tribe that shares survives. A species that empathizes endures. Nature discovered morality long before Moses did. Every act of kindness isn't just culture, it's evolution remembering its roots. We are wired for empathy. Our brains mirror the pain of others. Our hearts beat faster when we see suffering. Oh, my friend, even animals do it. An elephant mourning its dead. A dolphin helping an injured friend. A chimp offering food to the weak. You see, morality didn't need scripture. It just needed consciousness. But then we wrote it down. We turned compassion into commandments. And soon, goodness became obedience. We stopped asking, is it kind? And started asking, is it allowed? And slowly, morality, that soft, living instinct, hardened into law. Religion claimed it owned kindness, but kindness never asked for an owner. Think about this. If the only reason we do good is to earn heaven or avoid hell, is it really good? Or is it just fear with better branding? True morality asks for nothing in return. It's the hand that helps even when no one's watching. It's the voice that says sorry, even when you could stay silent. That, my friend, is what makes us human. Dawkins says religion didn't create morality. It hijacked it. It took what evolution built and claimed authorship. But goodness doesn't need an audience. It doesn't wait for judgment. It doesn't ask for blessing. It just is.
Some say without God, life has no meaning. But Dawkins replies, maybe meaning is something we make, not something we're given. Because when we realize we're alone, every act of kindness becomes sacred. Every moment of love becomes holy. Every apology, a prayer. Morality without God isn't emptiness. It's responsibility. It's easy to be good when you think someone's watching. But real virtue, my friend, is what you do when no one is. That's not atheism. That's authenticity. And maybe, just maybe, that's what morality was always meant to be. Oh. And yet, Dawkins knows the truth. Faith still gives comfort to billions. It brings community, structure, peace. But he asks, does it have to come with fear? Do we really need the threat of hell to love one another? Or can we love because it feels right? Because the greatest acts of compassion were never about reward. They were about connection. The mother, the healer, the stranger who helps, they don't need eternity. They just need empathy. So maybe the question isn't, can we be good without God? Maybe it's, can we see goodness as God enough? Because every act of kindness, every shared tear, every moment of mercy is a prayer written in the language of humanity. Oh, my friend, that's the oldest religion of all. Maybe Dawkins isn't trying to take God away. Maybe he's trying to give goodness back. To remind us that the divine was never in the sky. It was always in us. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into how ideas spread like genes, how belief evolves like life itself. A new kind of creation story, one written not in the Bible, but in the brain.
What if ideas were alive? Not metaphorically, but truly, in a strange, invisible way. Not in blood or bone, but in whispers, words, and repetition. What if belief itself wasn't something we control, but something that controls us? Dawkins called it a meme, a unit of cultural transmission, a replicator of thought. Just as genes carry biological information, memes carry mental ones. A song, a story, a superstition, a symbol. Anything that jumps from one mind to another, changes slightly, and continues to spread, that's a meme. Religion might just be the most successful meme of all time. Because think about it, a belief doesn't need to be true to survive. It only needs to be persuasive, comforting, contagious. If it promises safety, it spreads. If it creates fear, it spreads. If it binds communities together, it thrives. And once it's inside your mind, it doesn't just live there, it reproduces. You tell it to your children, they tell it to theirs, and the story goes on. Faith, my friend, is a self-replicating code. It has hosts, human minds. It has instructions, holy texts. It has immunity, taboos that forbid questioning. And like any successful organism, it's evolved to protect itself. If you question it, you're punished. If you spread it, you're rewarded. If you doubt it, you're told it's sin.
if you die for it, you're immortalized. Huh, what a perfect design. A story so powerful that it can command armies, inspire art, and outlive empires. It doesn't need to be true, my friend. It only needs to be remembered. That's why Dawkins says, memes don't care about reality, only survival. The meme for eternal life spreads better than the meme for we die and that's it. The meme for chosen people spreads faster than we are all the same. Because the more comforting a story is, the stronger it clings to the mind. And the more fear it carries, the deeper its roots go. Religion learned this long before marketing ever did. Repetition, ritual, reward. Say it enough times, and it becomes true. Fear enough, and you will obey. Love enough, and you'll never let it go. Belief doesn't just survive logic, it infects logic. It learns how to hide inside it. But before we call this manipulation, let's remember something beautiful. Not all memes are bad. Some bring art, love, unity, courage. Some spread curiosity instead of control. The idea of human rights is a meme. Science is a meme. Even kindness is a meme, a replicator of goodness. The difference, my friend, is that these memes invite questioning, not silence. Oh, and that's what Dawkins loves most. He doesn't want to destroy religion. He wants to evolve it, to replace the meme of obedience with the meme of curiosity, to teach our minds that a question isn't a threat, it's a seed. And the more you question, the more beautiful the garden becomes. Imagine that, my friend. A world where belief isn't viral, it's voluntary. Maybe that's what the next evolution looks like. A generation raised not on fear of doubt, but the joy of wonder. A faith that doesn't demand proof, but celebrates mystery. A story that doesn't punish disbelief, but welcomes discovery. Oh, my friend, that's the future Dawkins dreams of. A culture of self-aware memes, where ideas evolve like life toward empathy, honesty, and awe. So maybe the real challenge isn't to stop believing, but to believe better. To choose the memes that lift us up, not lock us down. That expand our minds, not narrow them. Because if ideas can live forever, then maybe we owe the world a few good ones. If religion is a meme, then so is love, so is laughter, so is curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, those are the ones worth spreading. But what happens when belief becomes power? When the meme takes control of the tribe, and questioning becomes rebellion? That's the story we tell next, the cost of certainty and the birth of control. My friend, no one is born believing in gods. We are born believing in voices. The soft voice that feeds us, the warm hand that protects us, the gentle whisper that says, "You're safe." Before we can reason, we trust. Before we can question, we listen. And that, Dawkins says, is the soil in which faith first grows. Every child begins life in a tiny universe where their parents are gods. They feed us, shelter us, save us. Their words are truth, their anger, judgment, their love, redemption. So when they tell us stories of higher powers, we believe. Not because we're naive, but because trust is survival. Obedience kept our ancestors alive. So evolution made it feel holy. Oh, my friend, that's the first lesson of indoctrination. Not fear, but familiarity. Religion doesn't enter through arguments. It enters through lullabies, through prayers whispered beside the bed, through stories told before sleep. Be good, or God will be sad. Pray, and He'll protect you. Doubt, and He'll see you. The child listens, eyes wide, heart soft, and belief slides in like breath. And once planted young, it grows strong, because the mind learns to protect what comforts it. That's the brilliance of faith, my friend. It doesn't need to argue. It only needs to start early. By the time reason arrives, belief has already built its walls, and questioning them feels like betrayal. Dawkins doesn't blame parents. He understands them. They teach what they were taught. They pass on their stories like heirlooms, love wrapped in myth. They don't mean to shape the world through fear. They mean to keep their children safe in a world they don't understand. But innocence, in the wrong hands, becomes a tool of control. Schools, churches, mosques, temples, all built to shape the soft clay of childhood, to form minds before they learn to resist. The prayers become habits, the rituals become identity, the doctrine becomes memory itself. By the time the child grows up, belief isn't a choice, it's who they are. That's the quiet power of indoctrination. It doesn't just fill your mind, it builds the walls around it. It teaches you what not to ask. It punishes curiosity disguised as sin. And soon, doubt becomes dangerous, not to faith, but to family, to belonging. Because questioning a belief can feel like betraying love itself. Dawkins tells stories of children terrified of hell, tiny hearts beating fast in the dark because someone told them that one wrong thought could mean eternal pain. That fear doesn't fade easily, even when the faith does. The body remembers the terror long after the theology is gone. That's not spirituality, that's trauma, disguised as salvation. But Dawkins says it doesn't have to be this way. Faith can be taught with honesty, without fear. Children can learn myths as stories, not ultimatums. They can be told, this is what some believe, and you are free to believe differently. Because curiosity, my friend, isn't the enemy of goodness, it's the beginning of it. The future belongs to those who raise thinkers, not followers. To those who say, here's what I believe. Now tell me what you think. Because the moment a child feels safe to question, the chains of indoctrination break and belief becomes a choice again. So maybe the goal isn't to erase faith, but to set it free, to let it breathe, to let it evolve, to let it meet reason and still survive, but stronger. Because faith without fear isn't delusion, it's poetry. And maybe that's the kind of belief the world needs now. In the next chapter, we'll see what happens when certainty grows too loud, when belief becomes armor and truth becomes casualty, when the fire of conviction burns brighter than compassion. If doubt is a whisper, then certainty is a shout. And the world, it seems, has always loved the sound of shouting. We call it conviction. We call it truth. We call it faith. But Dawkins calls it what it truly is.
a kind of blindness that feels like sight. Oh, my friend, throughout history, certainty has worn many names: religion, nation, ideology, righteousness, and each time it convinced people they were chosen and others were not. It built temples and walls, crosses and flags, gods and enemies. Because once you believe you have the truth, you no longer need to listen to anyone else's. It's strange, isn't it, that the same faith that comforts the heart can also harden it. The same scripture that teaches love can justify hate. The same story that saves can enslave. The cost of certainty, my friend, is always empathy. Because when you're sure you're right, someone else must be wrong. Dawkins doesn't say faith is evil. He says unquestioned faith is dangerous because it gives ordinary people extraordinary permission to act without doubt, to harm without hesitation, to silence without guilt. And when you're told your cause is divine, every cruelty becomes sacred. Oh, my friend, that's how holy wars are born, not from hate, but from certainty. Imagine two people, both praying to the same sky, asking for victory over each other, and both believing that love is on their side. It's almost tragic poetry, because in that battle, truth doesn't win, only loyalty does. And loyalty without questioning is the most dangerous faith of all. The cost of certainty isn't just war, it's silence. It's the silence of a scientist who stays quiet to avoid backlash. The silence of a woman told that doubt is disobedience. The silence of a child afraid to ask why. Every time a voice is quieted by fear, certainty grows louder. And the louder it gets, the less truth survives. Dawkins says doubt isn't weakness, it's humility. It's the mind's way of saying, I care enough about truth to admit I might be wrong. Faith without doubt is arrogance in disguise. But doubt, that soft, trembling thing, is moral courage, because it means you are still listening. Certainty is seductive. It feels clean, strong, righteous. But life is never that simple. We crave black and white, but reality loves its shades of gray. And the moment you think you found absolute truth, you stop searching, you stop learning, you stop growing. And maybe that's the real sin, not disbelief, but complacency. Dawkins reminds us the universe doesn't fit in any book. It's too vast, too wild, too mysterious to be captured in certainty. Every answer we write eventually fades back into question. And maybe the holiest thing you can say is, I don't know. Because in that moment, the mind opens and wonder returns. Certainty builds walls. Doubt builds bridges. Certainty kills curiosity. Doubt keeps it alive. And maybe, my friend, it's doubt, not faith, that truly connects us. Because it reminds us that we're all searching, all scared, all human. And that, perhaps, is the truest kind of belief. The cost of certainty is high, but the reward of humility is freedom. Freedom to learn, freedom to grow, freedom to stand in awe without pretending to understand. And when you can do that, when you can look at the stars and feel wonder without needing answers, that's when belief becomes something beautiful again.
In the next chapter, we will finally look beyond all this, beyond gods, beyond dogma, beyond fear. And what we'll find isn't emptiness, but infinite beauty. A universe without a creator, but not without meaning.
My friend, what if creation never needed a creator? What if beauty, order, and life weren't gifts from the heavens, but simply what happens when time, chaos, and chance are given enough room to dance? That's not blasphemy. That's wonder, redefined. For thousands of years, we looked up at the night sky and saw gods staring back. We built myths to explain their fire. We told stories of angels moving stars, of hands shaping galaxies. But then we built telescopes. And for the first time, we realized something breathtaking. The sky wasn't a ceiling, it was infinity. Oh, my friend, the moment humanity looked beyond Earth, something ancient shifted inside us. We saw that creation didn't happen once. It happens everywhere, every second, in a billion silent ways. Stars die and are born again. Planets form from dust. Atoms forged in ancient suns now rest inside your blood. You are literally made of starlight. And still, some say there must be a creator. But Dawkins whispers, or maybe creation is the creator. It's funny, isn't it? For most of history, we thought the universe was made for us. We were the chosen species, the centerpiece of a divine design. But the deeper we looked, the smaller we became, and the more beautiful it got. The universe doesn't revolve around us, it includes us, and that's enough. Dawkins calls this the greatest revelation of science, that meaning doesn't require purpose, and awe doesn't need permission. You can gaze at the Milky Way and feel your heart fill without needing to thank anyone for it. Because the gift is not that someone made it. The gift is that you get to see it. Oh, my friend, how fragile, how miraculous to even exist at all. When people say, without God, life has no purpose, Dawkins smiles. He says, the universe doesn't owe you purpose, but that doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it ours to define. You see, purpose isn't handed down, it's built, moment by moment, choice by choice. That's not despair, my friend, that's freedom. The universe is not cold, it's indifferent. And somehow, that makes its beauty more sincere. It doesn't pretend to love you, but you can love it anyway. You can stare into the abyss and find peace, not because someone watches over you, but because you are capable of watching at all. Consciousness itself is the universe awakening to its own existence. You are how the cosmos dreams. So maybe we don't need a creator to feel awe. Maybe the laws of physics are poetry enough. Maybe gravity is grace. Maybe evolution is the hymn of time. And maybe when we marvel at the stars, we're not worshiping gods. We're honoring the miracle of probability, the almost impossible chain of accidents that allowed you, yes, you, my friend, to sit here breathing, thinking, and wondering about why. The truth is, we may never know why the universe exists. We may never find the ultimate how.
And that's okay, because the mystery is not a gap to fill, it's the ocean we swim in. Dawkins says science doesn't rob the world of mystery, it gives us better ones. Mysteries that grow deeper the closer we look. The death of the old gods did not kill wonder, it resurrected it. It took the divine out of temples and placed it in telescopes. It took worship off our knees and put it in our eyes. Now, every sunrise is a prayer, every atom a scripture, every question a hymn. This is not a godless universe, it's a godless garden. And we, my friend, are its gardeners. So maybe Dawkins isn't asking us to lose faith, maybe he's asking us to fall in love again. But this time, with reality itself. To see the sacred not in the supernatural, but in the ordinary. The child's laugh, the storm's roar, the heartbeat before sleep. Because if you listen closely, you'll realize the universe has always been singing. We just called it God. But even in all this beauty, one question still lingers. If the universe has no divine plan, then what is our purpose? If there is no cosmic meaning, can we make our own? That, my friend, is the final chapter of this story, the closing reflection, the answer that lives not in the stars, but in us.